Welcome into WeAreSC. Welcome into Five Things. This is Eric McKinney, joined as always by Greg Katz and Mark Culkin, and special appearance from Scott Schrader, who's here in Eugene. We are talking Oregon's 36-27 win against USC. Let's go dive in. Five things. So our first thing is our player of the game. Greg, we'll start with you. Your player of the game in this one.
Well, if it's USC, I'll go with Caleb Williams. I mean, there's so much on his shoulders, and without him, they wouldn't have done anything. He was 19 of 34, 291 yards passing, one TD. He got battered around in the first quarter. Survival, doing the best he could. Offensive line didn't help him out too much, I didn't think. In a lot of instances, but he gets my nod.
All right, Mark, your player of the game in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams he's the face of the program, and he is the offense right now. I don't know. You can go with Todd Washington. You go with Brendan Rice. They both had solid games. I'll go with Greg on this one. It wasn't the flashiest USC offense this week, but Caleb Williams put up the numbers. And again, he didn't have as much help as he could have had with protection. It wasn't the greatest offensive line game of the season.
Scott, how about you? Your player of the game in this one.
Yeah, when you're watching the game being played, I mean, you do, especially when you're here, you have a full understanding of how vital that Caleb Williams is to this football team. So yes, he would be the guy, but it just seems like every week, it's been one hell of a season for Taj Washington. And, he just has a way of getting open. He has a way of making these tough grabs. He has become the primary target, kind of, maybe Rice is right there, with him at times. But, last year after the season, we probably didn't talk about Taj as much as he deserved to be talked about. And this season, we won't make that mistake. I'm going to give it to him because I just, Caleb gets it probably every week, but it's just fun watching Taj because he's one of those guys to where you're actually going to wonder what he's doing like 25, 30 years from now. He's just a guy that we all love. So he gets the nod.
All right. So I'm going to go on the other side and also off of the field. Brian Odom and Sean Nua for me. And yeah, I can hear the boos and the hisses, but the first two touchdowns that Oregon scored are inexcusable from both the missed tackles on the first one and just the miscommunication and figuring out what was going on the second one. This defense played better in this game than we've seen them a lot. This is an elite, one of the best in the country offenses in Oregon. And they were frustrated at times. I mean, you look at kind of the drive charts and it starts out like touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, right? So it's not super obvious when you look at that. This is a team playing without Eric Gentry, without Jalen Smith. Christian Roland Wallace clearly banged up. Max Williams seemingly banged up. Just injured all over the place. At one point, you had Mekhi Lemon playing corner, Prophet Brown playing corner, Traquan Fagans in the game, Rajon Davis in the game, like guys who have not consistently either played at all or played a lot. And again, this is an Oregon offense, number one in the country in points per game, top 15, 20 in like everything else. 36 points allowed is not something where a USC defense sits there and says, hey, way to go, look what we did. But with what we've seen this year and what we all expected, right? Coming into this game at Oregon, and then you start to see the personnel that was going to be there, that was potentially a worst case scenario. And Oregon piled up yards and they scored enough points to win. But that's it for me. You could sense a little bit of a change on that defensive side. So those are the guys for me. I think that everything kind of out there, they did a good job in 1 week getting this defense ready to play that offense. Second thing, let's go to the play of the game. And this may be unanimous. We'll see. Greg, your play of the game in this one.
Well, it happened in the third quarter with about 2:26 remaining. And again, unfortunately, Caleb Williams and Austin Jones were unable to deal with the mesh point of a handoff or keep or whatever they're going to do with it. Fumble was lost. I'm going to give credit to Eric on this. He immediately brought up that it was their 6th straight game of a fumble lost, if I'm correct. And Trojans were down 29-14. They had a lot of momentum going. I thought they were almost, I don't think they took the crowd out of it, but they certainly silenced the crowd up until that point. And there was that sense that they were on the precipice of even making it even closer, but it didn't happen. And this has become a routine that unfortunately at the end of the season, second half of the season especially, is killer. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Mark, your play of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be unanimous. That fumble exchange, it happened right after USC's defense came up with one of those rare 3-and-outs. It was just the epitome of killing your own momentum. And it seems to happen. Greg, you said 6. I think Eric, the correct said 8 games in a row that they've turned the ball over via fumble. So it's not getting better, despite what Lincoln Riley says after every single game.
Scott, your play of the game here.
Yeah, that one was definitely there. I mean, it's just for obvious reasons. It's just and it seems like it's plays like that have led to several close losses. And whether it's going to be a play like that or it's going to be a key holding call or whatever it might be. But when that happened, it's the same thing like Mark just said. It just was like, wow, they finally make us stop, and it's like, we can do it again here. Take the ball back and we'll stop you again. But it's the mistakes and so on that USC makes. I think a lot of teams are making similar mistakes. USC just can't afford to make them, and you just notice them. But the 6 games in a row, if it's 8, I wasn't sure if you're talking about 6 games in a row for Marshawn Lloyd or if it was 8 games. What is it? Is it actually 8 games in a row that they've had a fumble exchange like that?
A row that Caleb has put the ball on the ground.
Okay, I wasn't sure who we were talking about when we were, because
they've lost a fumble now 6 games in a row, and it's been a combination of right, that mesh dropping it, or Marshawn Lloyd's had a couple, Caleb Williams on a couple sacks, has put the ball on the ground. The ball has been on the ground a lot this season.
It has been. It has been, and it's just, you look at what these guys are doing when they're making these mistakes, and oftentimes it has been the same guys that are doing it, and they're the guys you need to be playing though, and that's kind of, you're at a point right now. It's like, who else do you put in there to minimize these mistakes? Caleb has put the ball on the ground a lot more this year, and I think the end result of that is he just has to do so much more this year. And I think there's an uber focus on, this is an opinion on the Heisman thing. Until now, it's it's over now, and it's been over for a while for him, but it just seems like it was throwing the ball away was an incomplete, and trying to make a big play is a Heisman moment. And I think that probably was coupled into some of the mistakes that were made. But the fumble part, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but that was definitely my play of the game too. Just the momentum was just too huge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pick a different one, but just to wrap this up, the frustrating part about it, right, was that you give Oregon that short field. They have to go 48 yards and score a touchdown there. They didn't score again the rest of the game. USC's next 2 possessions after that one, a 75-yard touchdown drive and then a 77-yard touchdown drive. So right when it felt like maybe at that point things are shifting a little bit, that play again was just massive in this one. Let's go to our third thing. Greg, the expectation you had coming in that was met in this one.
Well, the expectation I had coming into this one was that they were going to take the defense, Sean Nua and Odom, and they were going to simplify it. They were going to basically man up. And I would say 98% of the time, look, SC was 15-point underdog, 14.5, what have you. And they only gave up 36 points. And I think it was more of a secondary breakdown of tackling and that sort of stuff, which that doesn't go back on the coaches in terms of scheme and formation. That comes back to players not making plays. That's what it gets down to. So I was actually very impressed and left me with the thought of what could this have been had this been in spring practice and all through the second part of the season. That defense might have been just good enough to get to this point where we all know what the offense can do. But now we kind of have an inkling of how much coaching does make a difference when it comes to formations and strategies. And even though they lost, I'm really disappointed about it. I'm happy for the coaching staff. I can't imagine, well, I can because I've been on coaching staffs where you know things are wrong, but you don't have the authority to do it or to say it. And you kind of just say, okay, whatever. I get my paycheck, so to speak. But I think the players probably see it too. They have a lot to be proud of in terms of what they showcased based on a practice to try to change things around. And I was happy with it for the most part.
Mark, yours in this one.
Not something you want to expect, but you've come to expect it this year with his teams. USC's pass defense giving up big plays, and we saw it on the first two drives. I mean, it was almost like that. I don't know how many people are old enough to remember Name That Tune, but Oregon was scoring and Name That Tune in 2 plays and then 3 plays. Eventually, USC settled down on defense, but it was odd to see how easy other teams make USC's pass defense. So it showed up again. Fortunately, they were able to tighten it up as the game went along, I guess. But you expected it and you got it. It happened.
Scott, your expectation met in this one.
Yeah, I was expecting just by removing one, an extremely toxic element of this football program, with the change of a defensive coordinator. I figured that was going to matter more than maybe people thought. And what comes with the changing, and as you learn some stuff by talking to people, is you knew different guys were going to play. And whether that made a big impact in this game, playing Ray Jean and playing some of the younger guys. We even made commentary up in the press box, and this was another expectation that I was thinking would be made was the personnel issues. There are guys playing toward each week. We have these private conversations with each other and just like, well, why are they still playing? And so I would say that my expectations were met. I thought the game was going to be a higher scoring game. I thought USC would score more points, and I thought USC had a chance to win this football game. The last week I probably said I didn't think that Oregon was good as other people think they are, and I don't want for people to take that as I don't think they're really, really, really good. I just think that people need to slow their roll. I'm talking about this team being able to win a national championship, considering what some of these other teams are doing, like Georgia and Alabama and whatnot right now. I just don't think there's a team in the Pac-12 that can hang with either of those two teams. So my expectations were met that you were going to have a football team that was going to come out and it was going to be simplified, like Greg talked about, the defensive scheme. And it did start off rough, but things did settle in. And some of the penalties that are caused in games, including USC's penalty, are often the result of a good defense. And so I do think that I think all of our expectations were the defense was going to be improved. We just didn't know how significantly it would be improved. So I would say, there's no moral victories, but I would think that USC would have to feel somewhat decent about the defensive performance, all things considered, after the last, 6 weeks.
It's funny how we can consider that, right? When Oregon put up 552 total yards in this.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, the defense was okay. I mean, that it's not so my expectation was that, right? Oregon was just going to up and down the field against this USC defense, no matter what they did. And that was it. But one specific aspect that I expected was that USC would not touch Bo Nix really. And there was a pressure here and there, but again, no sacks. And now we're talking about 4 or 5 games in a row where I think USC has like 1 sack total in this whole run. That's been an issue for USC. And that's been something that Oregon has been unbelievable at in terms of protecting its quarterback. And in Ignite, where you see Caleb Williams having to run and scramble and dodge people and get out of the way of everybody, that's a stark contrast right now with what Oregon's offensive line can do for its quarterback and what USC's offensive line is doing for its quarterback kind of week in, week out at this point. Let's go to our fourth thing, the surprise for you, Greg. Surprise from this one.
That SC didn't get crushed. That SC was able to stabilize itself after the initial first quarter, because it was crazy here at Autzen Stadium. I mean, it was loud as loud can be, and tremendous atmosphere. Just, in fact, I'll be honest with you, I think USC should come up here and take a look at how they do their games and the excitement, how they keep that excitement level. It's just not strictly about making a lot of noise and a lot of music. They really do a great job, and they need to be credited with it. And it made me think about USC coming out onto the field. I mean, Oregon does it with a motorcycle and the duck on top of it, like a crazy thing, leading the team out. Maybe SC should think about getting Traveler to come out and go across the field and lead the team when they do that. But I mean, that might be a little radical, but it's just an idea. But they should take a look at that. But no, I was surprised that it wasn't like 55 to 20, and SC made it respectable.
Mark, you're surprised in this one.
Yeah. Staying on the same tangent that Greg was on, as far as, USC keeping the score closer than I think people probably anticipated, was USC not running the ball more to keep Oregon's prolific offense off the field. It seemed like when USC ran the ball, and I know the stats don't show it as the game went on, but when they ran the ball early in the game, they were getting big chunks of yardage. And it just seems like, I hate to go all the way back to the Arizona game, but I really don't think Lincoln Riley knows what the identity of his offense is once you take the ball out of Caleb's hands. And that's what, to me, that's the biggest surprise, is the amount of issues that Lincoln Riley's offense has this late in the year. We anticipated it from the defense, but to see the offense still struggling, that's a big surprise for me.
Scott, you're surprised from this one.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it really, really simple and short. But there were several maybe mild surprises and whatnot. But what really kind of stood out at the end of the game was that Jacoby Lane was in almost that entire final, series on offense for USC. And the reason why he's going to be a big time player. And I think a conversation that we had today was it was great to see these football coaches put out their young players tonight, and to go ahead and play those guys. Deuce Robinson got significantly more playing time tonight, and he made some good grabs. And I just think that it makes you think back that there are a lot of really, really good young football players on this team, and including some of the offensive linemen, which is a big issue right now at USC. They're going to have guys that they're going to develop, and those guys are going to go on to play. And I do think that it's not going to solve the problem next week or maybe even early into next season, but I think there's going to be a point where that USC offensive line is going to be among the best in the conference at some point.
So I'm right in line with Greg, and it's not a surprise. I mean, the surprise is the final score, that it was close. I did not expect this to be a close game still contested into the fourth quarter. But the in-game surprise was that, again, kind of like at the end of the Cal game, although I think we saw that Cal is not Oregon at all. But at the end of the Cal game, when you're down 14 and you keep playing, USC had what, 4 different chances in this game just to say, okay, that's it. I mean, that's the first 2 Oregon touchdowns, when it's 22-7, when it's 36-14, like they didn't need to keep coming. And this stadium was rocking that entire game. Lincoln Riley talks a lot about, oh, we're so close and we're so this, and USC fans do not want to hear that when you've lost 4 out of your last 5 games. It's still surprising to me that USC can be this bad on one side of the ball. Not just bad, like one of the worst in the country for huge chunks of the season. And yes, still in it against these teams. It's a surprise. It was a surprise a little bit in this atmosphere that, again, they kept fighting and kept going in it. Maybe it shouldn't be, because they've done that so often, and it's frustrating that they've had to do that so often this year. But I think just ultimately the final score being what it was, right? Oregon was not in the 50s or even got to 40. Again, this is the number 1 scoring team in the country coming into this game, I think around 47 a game. And so ultimately, you know, you're USC. There's not a moral win. You're not coming away from this feeling great about it. But when you talk about surprises, the fact that it was 9 points with USC still in it late was a surprise to me. All right, let's wrap this up. Our 5th thing, your biggest takeaway, Greg, from this one.
Well, we're going to go into the final game of the regular season. It's against UCLA. My takeaway is I think SC will be excited just to get a win. And a win against UCLA does mean something in the city of Los Angeles. And UCLA, you know, having just lost Arizona State, if you can believe that, is going to be one of those weird SC games that many of us have gone to when nothing is on the line, basically, except for the city rivalry. I don't even know. I know they sold out 77,000 seats. I don't know if there's going to be 60,000 people there. You know, I'm sure the UCLA people are more than happy to start thinking about basketball. And maybe SC fans, to some extent, are excited about the basketball program as well. But in the immediate, my takeaway is it's USC UCLA week. There'll be a game. I'm waiting to find out, because we are in the press box, basically. What time is kickoff going to be? Did you hear anything to that? I haven't checked my email to see if Katie sent something else, but I'll go out on a limb and make a prediction. It's going to be 7:30, but I hope I'm wrong. Okay, Mark's going to do the right thing. Okay, we wait.
I'll check an email.
What is it? Do you have an answer for us, Mark?
I'm checking email right now.
Okay, well, let's see if I'm right.
How many things is this? We're on just stream of consciousness things now.
I don't see anything yet, but I'm going to disagree with Greg. I actually think they're going to reward us with a 12:30 kickoff, just so they can end both of our seasons early next year.
Well, I would hope that's true. I hope you're right. I actually hope you're right. I don't like getting up early, but it beats the 7:30 game.
All right, Mark, what's your biggest takeaway from this that maybe is not game time related next week?
We're trying to be positive out of something negative.
And on that note, on the positivity, and I think we've all touched on a little bit, it's the fact that this team found a little bit of Trojan pride. They didn't succumb to the environment. They kept fighting on. They kept playing. I anticipated this team, and it had nothing to do with the players that they were missing pregame. I anticipated this team going up there, and once they got punched in the mouth a couple times, just folding. And when they didn't fold, I was like, all right, maybe they've got a chance. But it's the Clip Notes version of this team. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's what they've been doing all season long. We talked about it earlier, you know, the fumble right before the end of the third quarter, and then 3 plays later, Oregon's capitalizing on the score and starting the fourth quarter with a touchdown. So the biggest takeaway for me is this team is they're not close, despite what Coach Riley says. They are still learning how to win. That's the takeaway.
I mean, mine is that the defense played better. That was kind of not, I don't want to say it was the worry. I think it was the expectation, which makes it frustrating that it took this long to get to a point where you could put a defense out there that seemed, look, there were 2 just indefensible blown coverages that resulted in 2 touchdowns. This we're not talking about a defense that got buttoned up so much to where it was, even really good in this game. But it gives you hope, right? It gives you hope that you can go out and put together a good performance against UCLA, given another week and UCLA's struggles on that side. And you hope it kind of gives you something, because this season is devastating, right? To the trajectory that you thought USC could be on after last season and Lincoln Riley's first year. So you can't spin any positives. There's not a positive from this season other than you have a chance to get it right defensively moving forward. And I think that's kind of the only takeaway at this point, because that's the only thing that matters into next year and beyond, to get it right defensively. And it feels like in this game, maybe you got the first step, and there are players now that are getting some time that hadn't gotten time, that are feeling maybe they can get some confidence here going forward. But you look at a 4-loss regular season and just trying to take anything away from that feels really difficult when we were talking about what we were talking about potentially with this team coming into the year. So that's our look at a confusing 36-27, where you're trying to find positives from it, and in the end you're talking about another USC loss. We talked about what this end of the season run was going to be, and it has been landmine after landmine for this USC team, as they again lose 4 out of their last 5 games, dropping 36-27 to Oregon. So for Greg Katz, for Mark Culkin, this is Eric McKinney. That's our look at 5 things from USC Oregon. Thanks for watching 5 Things. Thanks for watching WeAreSC.